for Arkansas's 4th Congressional District, which takes in most of the southwestern portion of the state. Congressman Westerman worked as an engineer and forester before being elected to the Arkansas House in 2010. He is the only forester, that's still right, correct? Still holding that title strong? He is the only forester serving in Congress, and he's now the chair of the Natural Resources Commission. And I know, just from having worked with him and his staff, he is a huge friend of the state of Arkansas. He's a huge advocate for his district and for the state, and also just as a huge advocate here for gun owners of Arkansas. So thank you so much, Congressman.
So if you grew up in rural Arkansas, there's a chance you've been around firearms all your life. There's also a good chance that your dad or somebody in your family started stressing gun safety to you at an early age. You know, never point the muzzle at something you wouldn't want to shoot. Always identify the target before you pull the trigger. And that reminds me of one of Representative Higgins' constituents named Boudreaux that was going to take his wife deer hunting for the first time. And he got her out on her stand, and he left to go to his stand. He hadn't even gotten to his stand yet, and he heard a couple of shots. And he thought, oh my goodness, she already killed the deer, and I haven't even got to my stand. I'm never going to hear the end of this. And the next thing he knows, he hears her yelling, "Get away from my deer, that's my deer, leave that deer alone." So he starts running back. Boudreaux gets up there, and there's a gentleman standing there, and his wife's all up in arms, yelling and screaming. And she said, "Get back from my deer." She said, "That's my deer." He said, "Yes, ma'am, they will be up. And I'll let you have it, I just want to get my saddle off first." You have to identify that target. And I think that's something gun owners does well, is they identify the target. They're focused on something very specific, very important, and that's our Second Amendment rights. I've known Gary since I was served in the state legislature, many of you. We were able to pass something called Act 746, which constitutional carry here in the state. I know there's been more work that's been done on that. But in the brief moment before I do my main job of introducing our keynote speaker today, I just want to stress to you how important it is that we do the job that we've been called to do, that we have the right focus. And I think about a guy named Daniel Webster that served in Congress long before Representative Higgins and I did. And he must have been a pretty effective individual, because when you walk in the House chamber, right up behind the Speaker's rostrum is a plaque. It's got a quote by Daniel Webster on it. And Daniel Webster made a speech in 1825. It was getting close to the 50-year reunion of the Revolution. It's like we're getting close to the 250-year reunion of the Revolution. And he was speaking at a monument at Bunker Hill. They say it was the last large gathering of revolutionary soldiers that were there, along with many of our founders and the people who had pledged their life, liberty, and fortunes for this country. And the words he spoke towards the end of the speech are the ones that are up on the House chamber. It says, "Let us develop the resources of our land, call forth its powers, build up its institutions, promote all its great issues, and see whether or not we too, in our generation, can do something worthy to be remembered." Now that's a challenge that Clay and I have every day, to do something that's worthy to be remembered. And it's a challenge that each one of us as Americans have been given, to do something in our day and generation that's worthy to be remembered. And I can promise you that protecting our Second Amendment rights is something that's worthy to be remembered. When we talk about those great ideas, the founders told us what those great ideas were. It's already been said in the Declaration of Independence that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That was the seed that birthed this country. We fought a bloody Revolutionary War, and then we put a Constitution together, and our founders exemplified that declaration, and they formed our Constitution and said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States. Those are the great ideas that we're supposed to be promoting all the time. And if you read on through that Constitution, you get down to the Bill of Rights. We all know about the First Amendment: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to assemble. But the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, and our founders said that it shall not be infringed. People have a hard time understanding that in today's world. But I can tell you, it's just as much as important today as it was in the late 1700s. It'll be just as important 100 years from now as it is today. Because as much as I like to hunt, it's not about hunting. It's about a citizenry that's armed. And it is the government of the people, and by the people, and for the people. And if you don't have the Second Amendment, you don't have those other amendments. And that's why it's so important that you don't just have gatherings like this, but that you support programs like the 4-H shooting program. Do you realize that in this last Congress, the Biden administration was pulling back all funding for any kind of in-school shooting programs and archery programs? We passed a bill, got it, Biden even signed the bill into law. It was called the Protecting American Hunting, Heritage, and Education Act, that prevents funds that have been appropriated by Congress from being withheld from schools that do shooting sports. But that's the way progressivism works. They try to do little bitty things and eat around the corners, and the next thing you know, the ball's been moved way down the field, and your back's against the wall. We've got to do things not just on offense, but we've got to be, or on defense, we've got to be on offense. While we passed a law, it also got signed into law called the Explorer Act. It's an outdoor recreation bill. But one of the provisions in that was the Range Access Act that requires the federal government to build ranges on Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management lands all across the country. Because if you leave it to bureaucrats in control, they will strangle out all those programs that do anything to promote the Second Amendment in future generations. And I can tell you what, they've done a pretty good job of it. They've done a pretty good job brainwashing young people, teaming up with the media, and telling stories that just aren't so, and diluting the importance of our Second Amendment. So with that said, with that challenge, it's my honor to introduce somebody who is known far and wide, who's a very strong advocate for all of our freedoms, especially the Second Amendment. You may have seen some of Clay Higgins' videos when he was the sheriff's deputy for the St. Landry Parish Sheriff's Office. I think some of those went kind of viral. But I hope you got a chance to talk to Clay while he was here and to see just how genuine of an individual he is, how much he really cares for this country. I see Clay speaking in Congress sometimes, and I think, you know, if we went back 100 years or 200 years, I could see Clay giving that same speech, maybe in a little different suit, holding on to his lapel. But he speaks time-honored truth. And I've never told him that, and I'm a huge admirer of the way he communicates and the patriotism that he has and how that emanates from him and all that he does. He's here today with his beautiful wife, Becca. They got to spend Valentine's Day together. I can tell you, we get asked to do stuff all the time. We've been in D.C. so much since the first of the year that my dog didn't bark at me when I was But be sure to tell him personally how much you appreciate him taking time out of his schedule to come to Arkansas to share with you. And he's doing that because he's passionate about what you do. He's passionate about the United States of America, and there's no greater patriot than my friend, representative from South Louisiana, Clay Higgins. Give him a big round.